Hi, everyone. I'm Sara Parker, and this is Hey Bay City.
Yeah, crushed it. Sara Parker.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey.
Before we talk about work stuff, can we talk about family stuff?
Absolutely.
Tell me, you have a daughter?
Yep, one
Tell
daughter.
me about your daughter.
Oh my gosh, she's awesome. So I could talk about her for the whole time. Her name is Liv. Actually, her name is Liv Inslee. And kind of funny, the Sublime song, Livin' Easy.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of where we got the name from. We're big Sublime fans, big reggae fans. But Liv, it will be 5 July 9th, and she'll be in kindergarten. And she is just smart as a whip and probably the coolest person I've ever met in my life.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of awesome when you can make your own best friend.
Did you always want to be a mom?
You know, when I was younger, I actually didn't.
Oh,
I didn't
really?
realize I wanted to be a mom until I had her. And now I'm like, wow, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. So, yeah, when I was younger, I was like, no thanks. Like,
Yeah.
I just want to do me and just...
It seems hard and stuff.
Yeah, it does, right? And it is. But it's really
Yes.
fulfilling. It's my favorite thing to do is go home and hang out with my little kiddo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's great that you say that because sometimes it's like, how do I want to say it so that I don't make people angry? Like you have this impression that in order to be a parent or to become a parent or to be a good parent, you had to be 100% in from kindergarten. All I wanted to do was have kids, but there's so many paths to that, and you're really convinced after you have kids that just how amazing being a parent is.
And I think before you have one, you're convinced that your life is over. Like
Yes.
all of a sudden, like it,
Yeah.
and it kind of is but you're living for somebody else now, and
Yep.
you're doing things for somebody else. That portion of selfishness is over, but it opens up a whole new realm. I'm gonna get all misty eyed over here, but it opens up a whole new realm of, like, for lack of a better term, coolness. Everything we get to do with her is so much cooler.
Yeah.
We still do what we did before. We just have a little tag along with us now.
We just got one more friend to do it with. I love it.
Exactly.
So to kind of explore this idea of parenthood and kidhood, I've got a little deck of cards in front of you.
Okay.
I pulled. I've got a little question deck. I
love
do
it.
this little random question game, and so I pulled all the parenting, child related ones. And so how this works is you are going to pull a card. And then you're going to answer, and then I'll answer. And then I'll pull a card, I'll answer, you'll answer. We'll switch off till we run out of cards. Sound
I love
good?
that. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. And so when you're thinking about an answer, you can take as much time as you want to think about it. So
Okay.
no rush.
All right.
Go.
I'm most proud of my family for. I guess I'll say I'm most proud of my family for our perseverance. We've had some rough patches in our lives, and some things even before we had kids. My husband, Justin, there were some things that happened in our lives that were like make or break. They could either break a couple up, or you could push through and be stronger because of it. And we persevered, and we are like a very strong team now. So I think our perseverance is what I'm most proud of.
That it's one of the really most powerful blessings of a family, in that it's a completely different level of commitment. You're like, friends, amazing, necessary, critical, but like your family, like it's a different level of commitment.
But once you sign that paper with your significant other, you can't leave that easy.
Yeah,
So.
right. It's like you're stuck, and so you have this different kind of commitment that you got to fight through it. And I love the to me, a family, one of the proofs that a family is operating well is when those really terrible things happen. Do you run towards each other? Do you run away from each other?
Absolutely.
And like, if you've got a great family, I mean, there's nothing like that. Like, here's the absolute worst of me, and you still feel support. It's super messy, stressful, all that stuff. But you know deep down, like, we're running towards each other. We're trying to figure this out. I love
Yeah, and it's not just my husband and my daughter. It's like my parents and my grandparents, and we all gravitated towards each other, and now we're kind of closer than ever. And it's due to the tragedy we ran towards each other.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
What was the question? Proud?
I'm most proud of my family for.
I'm most proud of my family for the same thing, but I'm going to force myself not to copy your answer. I'm most proud of my family for. I want to say like feeling like a family. Like I walk in the door and it's us.
Yeah.
It's my 3 daughters, my wife, and me. And I really love that. And I'm proud of that the most because that's not the case with a lot of people. Like they might walk through the door and feel like the complete opposite of that.
Like these people again.
Yeah, disgusted or irritated or stressed out and fearful.
Yeah.
Even unstable. And I feel for those people. And so I think looking at my family, that's what I'm most grateful for, most proud of, is that I get to walk in the door with all of my baggage and all of my BS, like all that stuff that I bring to them, but we're still a family. I love that.
Yeah, it's like that's your safe space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I love that.
Way to go, family.
I know, right? Shout out to the fam.
Yeah, go us. Okay, here's my question. A question I've always wanted to ask my parents.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
This is probably low-hanging fruit, but I'm going to say it anyway because I think sometimes like the low-hanging fruit is the best hanging fruit. Like there's questions that we know we should ask, but we just don't for whatever reason. And I would love to just sit down for 30 minutes with them and ask them for advice. It wouldn't be just one question. It'd be like all the questions. Like what, looking back on 39 years of parenting, like what's been the best decision you've made? What's the worst decision? Do you regret anything? Because as kids, like you don't get to see that perspective. You're a kid, and your parents are always right, even if you think they're wrong. But they're right. They're adults. They know what they're doing. And then when you become an adult and a parent, you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
You're all just learning.
Yeah, like, wow, every day I do something really wrong. And so I would love to ask him questions like that, like all of those questions. Like we talk specifically about certain situations, but like those big general questions. And I think that's so important because I was listening to a podcast the other week, and the person that was being interviewed made the point that we often, almost always, parent like our parents, even though we're not aware of it. Like I don't wake up and say I'm gonna be a dad like my dad. Like it's our default. Like we default into these things, how we react to certain situations. And so I think exploring those questions with my parents would kind of make me more aware of like what I do. I might be reacting, and I probably am reacting as a parent to my kids in similar ways as my parents, and they might say we did that completely wrong. Like we didn't wake up to that mistake of our reaction or how we were doing it until we saw the product of it 20 years down the road, and we're like, we should have done that better. And I'm kind of defaulting into it, saying, well, this is what we do.
This is what they've always done.
This is what they've always done, and not even thinking about it. So I think there's a lot of benefit, not even just from the advice side, but the awareness side of, this is what I do as a parent. So what about you?
What was the question?
If I could ask my parents one question.
So similar to yours, it would just, my parents are my best friends. I pretty much talk to them every day. They're camping right now. They've been gone for like a week and a half, and I'm missing them so much. But I still talk to them every day. So we're really open. But the one thing, they've been together for, similar to your parents, 38 years. And it's just advice on, yes, my husband and I were 4 years married, 9 years together. But when those really tough fights come up, like what made you guys like want to stick together than just run away? I think that would be something to sit down and just get some advice on how to tolerate someone when they're just grinding your gears, man.
Yes. That is such a great point because like fights within, I don't want to say fights. Let's say disagreements.
Yeah, well, because you're never going to agree on everything, and you don't want to agree on everything.
Right. But honestly, no, I'm going to walk that back. I am going to say fights.
Yeah.
Because because you do fight.
Yeah.
And there are times when you're just so frustrated. And it's a different kind of frustration. Like if you're fighting with a stranger, if you're disagreeing with somebody on Facebook, like you have a very limited relationship with them. Still might bother you a whole bunch, but it's not that deep.
Yeah.
But then when you walk into your house and you have some kind of situation, like you are open to that person, like you love that person, you've exposed your like everything about who you are to that person. And so then when there's a situation, it's like, oh my gosh, it's complicated on so many different levels. So.
Yeah. Yep. I'm like, what made you guys want to stay with each other for 38 years and keep going? They're like besties.
Yeah.
It's admirable. It's awesome.
Right.
So I think that's what I would. And now I'm like, hey, Mom.
Yeah.
I need some advice.
Yeah. Before you hop in the car to go back to the office, like I've got a couple quick questions for you. Yeah.
Let's FaceTime later.
Love it. Next question.
All right. Next question. What I learned about love from my parents.
Oh.
Again, I'm going to go with perseverance. Man, they've had to have some test in their lives for 38 years to still love each other as much as they do. Yeah. To go away for 2 weeks in a camper and be able to hang out as best friends. I learned that your significant other should be your best friend, honestly. And it's awesome to watch my parents interact. They're adorable together.
Yeah, I think about my parents and their relationship, and then I also think about their relationship with their sons, us, me and my brothers. And I think one of the most important things is that you have to try. And part of trying within a relationship is trying to do better. That a lot of, like, we apply ourselves in our work. Like, I want to be a better X, Y, and Z, whoever I am professionally or whatever. And that's really obvious. But then when it comes to our relationships, they sometimes get the leftovers, or sometimes we just kind of assume that will happen. Oh, my wife will always love me. My kids will always love me. And sometimes that can lead us to take those things for granted. And I do, but I think their love has kind of created an awareness that I realize when that's happening, when I'm not trying hard at that part of my life. And then if you do love somebody, it means trying to get better at loving them. Yeah. And it's part of this giant process. And it kind of ties to what we're talking about with arguments and challenges. That's part of the trying hard. And then, when you were talking about your parents, like how do you for 38 years still be best friends with each other? And I the phrase that popped into my brain was like, you earn it. Yeah. Like that's what you've earned, that privilege of being best friends with somebody for 40 years because you've fought through that mess. And you know what, like 20 years ago, we had a make or break situation and we did such a great job moving through it. Like bring it. Yeah. Like what else is there? Like, that almost broke us. There's nothing else worse than that, really.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there could be, but like that was really, really bad. And so it's proof that we have love. And I think
I just remembered, but I learned from my mom and dad about love languages without understanding that.
Oh, yeah.
Looking back with my mom, my dad, he works at GM, and my mom cooks him a lunch every day and has dinner ready for him when she does all this because that's her way of showing her love. So I was able to learn that and really hone in on my husband's like love language. Yeah. I did that without realizing it, but now thinking about this question, I'm like, I learned that from my parents. Yeah. They do acts of service, or they meet each other where they need to be met, and it's that I think is probably the most important thing that I've learned is how to meet somebody where they're at.
So I have mixed feelings about the love languages things. And I'm still thinking about it. So strong opinions, loosely held. But I love how you described it in meeting someone where they're at. I love that explanation of love languages, in that like Brene Brown has a great thing about how we misdefine good relationships when we say that we we don't meet each other 50-50. We meet each other 100%. And she's like, that's completely wrong, because who shows up every single day to your relationship at 100%?
Yes.
No one.
Right.
No one, almost ever.
Right.
Like you've got great days, and you've got really terrible days, and maybe it's things at work, maybe it's things with the relationship or your kids, or like a whole host of things. And so her kind of explanation of it is her and her husband do this thing where this percent check-in.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I'm at 100% today. Like, I got you.
Yep.
Like, you are at a 10%. Do not worry about it, because I will cover
I got you. Yeah. I remember that. I can't remember where it was, but I heard of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
I first heard her explain it that way on a Tim Ferriss podcast. And I love that explanation, because that's real.
Oh, yeah.
That's real. That's the truth. That's the truth that we know every single day. And I think it also highlights the importance of that relationship, in that I'm going to come home some days at a 25%. And that's my 100%.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I can give that day. And where love comes in is the other person saying, like, I got you, because I know that you've got me.
Yeah.
Now, you can, of course, take advantage of that. Like, if you're showing up 10% every single day, like, there's going to be a reckoning.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, you got to improve that. So I love your explanation of, or your definition of, like, meeting somebody where they're at.
Yeah. Or where they need you to be.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's my turn to pull a card.
Yep.
In my family, blank calls the shots. 100%. That's my 5-year-old daughter, Evelyn. She calls the shot. She is I want to say it's me, and I'm sure my wife wants to say that it's her, and as parents we want to say that it's us. But Evelyn is such like a force of nature that she definitely calls the shots. Now, to our credit, we're being better parents about saying, you know what, you are relentless, torrent of energy, uncontrollable. Let's kind of guide that a little bit this way. Or like, mom and dad need to talk for 10 minutes.
Oh, man.
And like how to do that in a way that doesn't make it feel like she's doing something wrong. You know, like, hey, this is important that mom and dad are talking just by, please go play with your sisters. But like, if we're being honest, we kind of follow her lead. So.
Yeah, I wanted to say me, but then when you said that, I'm like, you know what? It's Liv's world. We're just living in it.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely Liv, but same thing. I just last night, my husband just started a new job. He's started Monday.
Oh,
so
nice.
what, 3 days in?
Yeah.
And he was telling me about it and telling me some of the things. And she's like, Mama. And I'm like, Liv, mom and dad need 10 minutes. We're having a conversation. Yeah. So and within reason, she calls the shots.
Yeah.
But I do think we do a pretty good job of kind of 50-50ing it. When I'm a decision maker in work, but when I get home, I don't really like making decisions. So that's when the husband steps up and he's like, all right, well, this is what we'll do for dinner and this is what we'll do this weekend. But yeah, Liv runs the household.
Yeah.
If she's not happy, nobody's happy. So.
We did this thing for a while that worked really well. Unfortunately, we fell out of it. But we have to bring it back. So Evelyn is similar, and I think every kid this age is like mom, dad, mom, dad. It's those like bids for attention.
Yeah.
Which are great. And we did this thing where we would be talking. Evelyn would come up and want to say something. Mom, dad, and we just put our hand out. And she would put her hand on top of our hand. And that was our sign to her, like, we hear you and we will listen to you, but we're in the middle of something right now. So let's hold hands for just a second. Let us finish this and then we'll get to you. And I love that.
I like that.
And you know what? It was great for Evelyn, but it was also great for us because it kept us from snapping.
Yeah.
Like, hey, stop. Like, I hear you. Like, it stopped that. Like, all you had to do was put a hand out.
And I like what you said about, like, you don't want her to feel like she's doing anything wrong because I want my daughter to be assertive. I want her to speak her mind. And I don't want, when she speaks her mind to me and I'm in the middle of something, I don't want to yell at her and hinder that. So I like that. I like that hand
and
thing.
it's also like a teaching thing.
Yeah.
Like you're teaching them how, like, the pace of conversation or the rules of conversation. Like
Yeah.
if you really want to be listened to, you have to wait till somebody's done talking.
And what you have to say is important.
Yes.
But you have to kind of wait your turn.
Yep. Yeah. So I got to bring that back.
I like that. I think we're going to try that.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, we're definitely going to try that.
Do it.
And then it gives like acknowledgement to say, we hear, like you said, we hear you. You're next. You're next, babe.
Right.
All right, ready? Let's see. We'll go with something I wish I had been told as a child. I can answer this one right away.
Oh, really?
To speak up, to use my voice. That's something at 35 years old, I'm now learning that people care what I have to say. I wish I would have been told, and it's not that I was told, well, in school is not quiet during class. I was never quiet during class. I was a talker. But I wish I would have been told just like that, the hand thing. What you have to say is important, and you will have your turn to speak. I wish I would have been like, now I'm finding my voice finally. Yeah. I wish I would have been told that as a child.
I'm going to say that I wish as a child I was told that it's okay if people are angry with you or disappointed in you or don't agree with something that you said or think. Like, that's okay. And in fact, it's more than okay. You have to expect it.
Yeah.
Because the world is vast with many people and it's complicated. And if you are vocal, like if you are trying to do something, if you do take a stand, if you are specific in like an idea or belief, that inherently is divisive because there are going to be people who disagree with that. Yeah. And that's okay. And it wasn't intentional or unintentional, like on my parents' part of it. It was just kind of the environment that we were in. Like all of us as a family, like we really had to play our cards right because we were working with people and kind of a smaller subset of the community. And so like making people happy was kind of the implicit goal. Like your goal is to make people happy. Yeah. We've kind of codified it now with like people pleasing. And to a certain extent, I think that helps our conversation, but it also degrades it because now it's like the thing I saw on Instagram about people pleasing. Like, I'm a people pleaser. Now we've labeled ourselves as that. But it was more like one of the highest things to value was making people happy with what you're doing. And now with like community work, like unpacking that and leadership and what does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean doing everything that everybody wants because obviously that's impossible. It means doing what you believe is right for the most people or everyone, regardless of what their interpretation of that. And I wish I was told that early on, and I wish most people were told that early on because I run into a lot of people in similar situations. Like we don't want to say it because it makes people angry, and now there's conflict involved, and now I have to deal with conflict, and I hate that too. And so sometimes it's easier just to eat it. Yeah. But I think if we all approach each other with this idea that of humility, of love, of like we're going to have really great conversation, and in order to do that, we have to potentially talk about things that we disagree with, and that's to be expected, and that is okay.
And it's okay, yes.
Now we can have more of those conversations more often because we can talk about really difficult subjects we disagree on, and I know that it's not a personal attack.
And then maybe collectively solve big problems together. Those uncomfortable conversations, we have to have those in order to solve big, uncomfortable problems. Yes. So that's a good one. Definitely something I wish I would have been told. Yeah. Just because somebody disagrees with you doesn't mean they don't like you. And you don't. Yeah, exactly.
And I love what you said about the big, uncomfortable conversations are necessary to solve the big, uncomfortable challenges. Because I think that's something that I really love about like Hey Bay City was in 2020, we had these numbers come out that were like, this is the future of our community.
And they were scary numbers.
Yeah, big, scary numbers, and it doesn't look good. Yeah. And that's uncomfortable for any community to come out and say, we're losing X amount of population. Look at all of these numbers. That's not something that any community wants to have. That like we don't want to project those up on the billboard and say, hey, everybody, look at this. But what I respect so much about like Hey Bay City and city, county government, and everybody that's played a hand in this has said that conversation was had.
Yeah.
And it was tough and it was challenging. And so now, because of that, this is part of the answer to that big, tough challenge. Like we didn't pretend like those numbers didn't exist. We didn't like, well, you know what, but X, Y, and Z. Like we were like, this is the situation.
Or somebody else will take care of it.
Yeah.
We see these numbers, let's forget about them and let it be somebody else's problem. No, it's all of our problems, and we need to know about this.
Yes, we as a community have to have this conversation and come up with an answer. And then specifically here too in Bay County, because we didn't have anything already addressing that problem, and we just had to ramp it up. Like we had to look at it and say, well, how would we as a community address this? And I don't want to say like, hey, Bay City was a guess, but when you're starting from scratch, you say, what do we have? How can we best go about solving this problem? And then you do it.
Yeah.
And then you look at it and you say, what is working really well? What is not working? You try to fix those things that don't work, and you improve, and then you double down on the things that are working well, and then you rinse and repeat that over time.
Isn't that like the scientific method?
Yes.
You have a hypothesis, and then you do what you have to get there. Whatever doesn't work, yeah. So
yes.
Yeah, it's not a guess, but it's a hypothesis, really, to say like. And then we go back and say, hey, this is not working. Let's tweak it a little bit and move forward to this end goal.
Yeah, and I think that approach has so many applications to not just this challenge of growth, but any kind of challenge a community faces. I at the regional housing summit a bunch of months ago, they had this panel of folks from around the state that are also looking at this issue. And one of the gentlemen from the west side of the state, he had said something really good, and I wish I recorded it so I could quote him exactly. But he had said something like, "We're not so naive as to think that our next move will solve the problem,
Mm-hmm.
but what we do know is that we will do the next best thing, and then." Either if it works, we're closer to solving it. If it doesn't work, we're also closer to solving it.
Yeah.
It's a clue to get us on the right path to the solution. And then you take the aggregate sum of all of those decisions over time, and that's the solution. And I think sometimes in communities we get in our own way because we're kind of sitting and we're saying, well, what's the silver bullet that's going to solve this thing like this? Mm-hmm. Or what's the one right, perfect decision? And then we have to do that. And then it's paralyzing because everybody has different concepts of what perfect is.
Yeah.
Nothing is perfect anyway. And so then even if you do decide, you're like, well, that wasn't perfect, and all of those things, when we really just need to do our best next move.
Yeah.
And I love that if you look at Hey Bay City and kind of how it's grown from almost 3 years ago now, it's these incremental steps. And when you're talking about a challenge like growth and retention, that's what it has to be, because it's this long game.
Yes.
Right? We're not going to, no amount of money, no a project or program, you can't institute any of those things and then expect the next day to wake up and like, oh, wow, we have 100,000 more people.
It's like, look how long it took us to get here.
Yes.
We can't change it overnight. I say this about relationships also. I've spent 35 years becoming who I am.
Yes.
I can't expect somebody to figure that out in 9. So it's like it's gonna take time for us to we're gonna figure new things out about each other every day. It's kind of the same thing with these big problems. It took X amount of years to get to this spot. It's not going to take a year, 2 years. We don't know how long it's going to take, but the steps that we're taking, I once was told, I said, I didn't have a very good day today. And my mentor said, did you take a small step forward? And I said, well, yeah, I got my emails answered. And he said, that's a step in the right direction.
Yes.
That's one less thing you have to worry about. So then you can, maybe tomorrow, you can have a great day.
Yep.
But it was something where I'm like, wow, again, with the 100%, maybe that day I only had 70% to give. And I filled that 70%. And because it wasn't 100 in my brain, I was like, I didn't have a good day today. But even a small step is still a step in the right direction.
Yep. Yeah, we're looking at in Bay Colony I believe 70 years of population decline.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking at that, if you just want to go math to math, it's going to take at least, let's be generous and say half that.
Yep.
And that's dependent on a lot of things, because something that we talk about a lot, like when we give like quarterly reports, is that this issue is not solely Hay Bay City's responsibility. This is all of our collective responsibility as a community. And so I think to be successful in this, Hay Bay City being the tip of the spear, saying this is a challenge and we're going to keep working hard. We have a crew of a very intentional crew doing work only on this issue.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that economic development doesn't play a part. It doesn't mean that education doesn't play a part. It doesn't mean that city government, county government doesn't play a part. And in fact, it means that all of those things play a part. One of the roles that this program has is simply keeping this on our radar.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things to talk about in communities, so many challenges, and it's really easy to get distracted or like focus on something, and then you wake up after 5 years or 10 years like, oh. Attraction, retention, like we kind of lost that. And so I think that's a giant plus.
And just a quick call to action to our listeners and viewers. Let's stop talking about it and let's be about it. Let's take action. Like you said, this is a community effort. If there's ideas or initiatives, let's talk about it. Let's have those conversations and see if there's ways that we can meet each other and make some big things happen for our community.
Yep. Absolutely. Let's talk about STEM Fest.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Because one of the things we are looking at in terms of like workforce development, it's not only you are an adult with a certain set of skills and we have a job for you, please apply, and then hopefully we fill that. It's really building this pipeline from people who are currently employable all the way down to kids.
Yeah.
And so STEM Fest filled a great need in that. Tell me about STEM Fest.
Yeah, so STEM Fest happened June 8th this year at Delta College. They were gracious enough to open up their gym for us because we had a really awesome problem. We had too many registrants to have it at our prior location. So shout out to the STEM Fest team for that. And we had the Global STEM team and Saginaw STEM come in and help set up, I want to say we had 30 different activities for K through 12 Bay County students. We had a drone cage. There was robots. We had, I know your daughter was obsessed with the pig lungs, which, okay, she's probably going to be a doctor or something because she was, every time I would look for her, she was at the pig lungs. Yeah. We could make these little... what do they call them, like jitterbots or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
Those are really cool. A bunch of hands-on activity, and we had over 200 K through 12 Bay County students attend. And we have impact and we have surveys and whatnot, but my daughter alone, she's still every day asks, can we do a science experiment? We had to go out and buy her a robot. Now my husband's like, maybe we should get her a drone. Like every day she wants to do a volcano or a science project. Can we make a lava lamp? It sparked such an interest for her that I want her to do something hands-on. I'd like her to do like engineering or something in the trades because I think she would be awesome at it. She has the knowledge and the skill set. This kid, she's going places. So just the impact on my daughter alone from STEM Fest, I am like eternally thankful. And then just to hear some of the other testimonials from the parents also. They enjoyed it. It was an awesome event that we hope to do yearly. We just met with the debriefing with the STEM team to kind of come up with some ideas for 2025. So Stay tuned for 2025. We may have some awesome STEM and STEAM activities for 2025.
Yeah, so science, technology, engineering, math. I love, and I want to explain the why behind this event just a little bit because we think about this stuff all the time and like, oh, of course this is obvious, but I just want to spell out why an event like STEM Fest is so important. Because people might think, well, why don't you have somebody come into the classroom and say, well, I'm an engineer and this is what I do every day. That can be cool. It can be cool. But what I love about this event is that it, like we were saying earlier, it meets kids where they're at. If I, as a soon-to-be 40-year-old adult, come into this room and I'm talking to a 4-year-old about what I do as, let's say, an engineer, and this is the kind of thing that I work on and all of these other things, that's not where a 4-year-old is at.
No.
That it's not if I say, well, and I've got a potential, if you grow up to become an engineer, you've got a potential salary range of anywhere between $80,000 to $180,000 a year based on what 4-year-old goes, oh, that sounds like an amazing career opportunity for
right.
me. Like, not a single one of them. But so what an event like this does is it speaks the language of kids, which is emotional connections. Do they have fun? Is it interesting? Are they doing something? Do they get to explore? Do they get to kind of control and play and all of those things? And that's what I really love about this event. It doesn't pretend like kids are adults. It says, we know kids are kids. And so what we're going to do is create a giant science, technology, engineering, math playground for them in a gym. And they get to run around and do whatever it is they want, as many times as they want, for as long as they want. If they're bored with that, they get to run over. There's no you should be here for 20 minutes.
There's no path to follow. Yeah. Yep.
There's no path. It's like my daughter in the pig lungs.
Yep.
Like, if she wants to blow up those pig lungs and see how lungs work for the next 3.5 hours, awesome.
Right.
Because now maybe later on she becomes a doctor and she's like, you know what? I'll never forget is those pig lungs.
Yeah. And conversely, I think it's important for us to obviously figure out what we want to do, but also figure out what we don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be by those pig lungs. They're gross to me, honestly.
Yes.
But and that's one thing. I went and spoke at a preschool class about careers. And I'm like, what am I going to talk to preschoolers?
Yeah.
First question, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be a princess. I want to be a mermaid.
Yeah.
Some, veterinarian, doctor. But as I was speaking, I saw a thing on their pictures of their lessons that they go through, and it was eye contact, waiting for your turn to speak, raising your hand. So I took that and thought, wow, these are soft skills. We can start these as early as preschool. So I think as silly as it sounded, they're like, will you come and talk about careers to preschoolers? I'm like, okay, sure. All right, great. It was amazing. And I would like to say, pat myself, I think I may have left a little bit of an impact.
Nice.
The kiddos were talking about it after I left because I talked with the teachers. But I think we can get into schools at such a young age and start teaching skills that are needed for life.
Yep.
And like I said, I'm a huge fan of figuring out what you want to do. And that's why job shadowing is important. But let's figure out also what you don't want to do. Yeah,
I think about a lot of the kids that I've interviewed at the ISD Career Center, and some of the students there have discovered their lifelong career because they went to the veterinarian office and they said, oh my goodness, this is everything that I've always wanted to do in my life. And so now they're going into college not only with a great idea of what they want to do, as opposed to maybe just guessing, but they're more qualified. They have certifications, things like that. But I've also interviewed a handful of students at the ISD Career Center who said, my first year was in the culinary program, and I know for a fact I do not want to grow up to be running a restaurant or working as a chef or anything like that. One student specifically regarding the culinary program, that's what he said, but he also said, but this is great because now I have skills that I can cook.
Yeah.
And I know how to bake.
Yeah.
And this is really fun for me. Not a career opportunity for me.
But a life lesson, a life skill.
A life lesson, a life skill. And so I love when you said figuring out what you don't want to do.
I started in a dental program at Career Center. I wanted to be an orthodontist. I was in that class for about a week and a half. Yeah. Yep. And I was like, oh, this really is not for me. So luckily they didn't make me go through a full year. The teacher and I had a discussion, and I was able, it doesn't even exist anymore, but I went into the business information processing class.
Oh, wow.
And I was in that for about 2 weeks, and then I got a job at Career Center. And then, so I've been in business since 15, 16 years old. I've been working in an office.
Oh, very cool.
But thank goodness that I tried the dental program, because can you imagine if I would have paid for orthodontist school?
Yeah. Credit to anybody who can stare at people's mouths for all day.
Seriously. Yeah. Yeah. Seriously.
Speaking about getting into schools, tell me about the BEP. What is the BEP?
All right. I'm like excited to talk about this because it's one of my favorite aspects of what I get to do. So BEP stands for Business and Education Partnership, and this is through the chamber. And what we do is quarterly, we meet with superintendents and ISD professionals and businesses. We have a topic. Our last one was a tour of the Career Center and a question and answer with the president of the Career Center. Our next one is going to be a skilled trades panel. So every quarter we switch between an education topic and a business topic. Also through that, so those are our meetings. That's our committee. We get together quarterly. But through the BEP, we get to do really cool things like mock job interviews and something called Bite of Reality. And Bite of Reality is something we go into schools and it's a simulation. They get an app on their phone, a career. They can either choose their career or it's randomly assigned. And they have to stop at 12 different stations. And it's housing, transportation, leisure, clothing, technology. I'm missing a couple. But what happens is while they're doing this, they go into debt. So then they have to visit the credit service area. So this teaches financial responsibility. And we know it's a success when the kids come up to us and say, I have to go home and thank my parents. We're like, I did not know how much it costs to just be alive. Like it's, and that's how you know it's a success when they're like, a cell phone costs how much? And these are on the cheaper end.
Even the fact that money can stop. There's a point where you no longer have any money.
Yep. The one that I loved was like, I have $2,000 of credit card debt. I'm like, dude, that's pretty decent. Because I think the average is what, $12,000 at credit card debt.
Even learning the definition of what it means to be broke.
Yeah.
Like, well, broke doesn't mean that you're necessarily living on the streets or you're a person who is homeless. Like that's one definition of it. But the other definition is exactly that. Like I'm still functioning as a human being, but I've got $25,000 of credit card debt and I've got $100,000 of student loan debt. I'm still kind of paying my bills, but I'm broke.
Yeah. I did the housing one last time, and it's like a studio, a 2-bedroom, or living with your parents, and they all choose like the studio or the apartment. And then towards the end, they all come walking back and have to move back in with mom and dad.
I love it. I want to tie this Bite of Reality to this goal of attraction retention, because specifically like with retention, part of keeping people here and giving them a high quality of life is the opportunities that we have. Can we increase the opportunities? Can we have better opportunities? Employers, can we, as a whole, can we provide a wage that it really permits a high quality of life that makes people want to say, like, no, this is where I want to build my family. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is our own personal responsibility of how can I best leverage the things that I have to have a high quality of life. If I'm running around broke every day, it's going to be my life. I'm going to be stressed out. I'm going to hate it. I'm going to be looking for other opportunities to try to dig myself out of this hole that I really dug for myself because I didn't have the skills financially or personally or even experientially to understand that.
Yeah.
And so I love this is that it's really helping equip kids who will turn into adults with at least some context about what it means to pay rent.
Yeah.
Or what, like when you get a paycheck, that doesn't mean that $1,000 that you got or whatever it is your $1,000 to go
just blow.
Like I can get that place. I mean, you can do that, but then there's consequences. Like you have to move in with mom and dad, and I love that part of it. I love it.
Yeah, teaching that financial responsibility at such an early age. I wish I had. I mean, my parents did a really good job helping me with that. Having this in high school would have been awesome. It would have been really eye-opening, and that's why I'm so proud to be a part of the Business and Education Partnership. Same thing with the mock job interviews. I've done these several times in my life, not just with BEP, but I used to volunteer at the ISD to do the mock job interviews. And the first interview the kid sits down for, you can just tell they're sweating, shaking, so nervous. By the end of that interview, you're able to make them so comfortable that the next time they walk over to a volunteer for that next interview, they're confident. So keep doing these and keep practicing. One big thing I have to say to anybody who's starting out interviewing, practice, practice, practice. I've been through several interviews in my life and I still get nervous before.
Yep.
But because I have that practice, I am able to like swallow the nervousness and just present confidence. Yep. So the mock job interviews are something I love doing because I love watching the kiddos walk in so nervous, but leave confident and ready to. And if I'm being honest, we're all trying to build a big legacy here, right? Like you and I, we want to leave a lasting impact. Mm-hmm. What happens when we're no longer here? What are we going to do then? Don't we want to work together to train up somebody that's going to come over and take over what we're trying to do and make it better? Yeah. Make it their own and make it better.
You got to pass the torch.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And then that also goes to what we were saying earlier about that idea of constant improvement and trying the next best step. That is not only effective now, but it's effective later on, so that when you've done the 10 years of work, the 30 years of work, whatever it is, you've done a lot of that, the messy stuff, that startup stuff, the figuring out stuff, so that you have even more qualified people like these kids coming up and saying, oh, like, that ball is rolling, I can make it roll even faster.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where the magic happens. At first, it's always a slow grind, but then if you really are intentional about how can we build a pipeline, how can we pass the torch, that's where the magic happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk about some specifics about how a Hay Bay City can help Bay County. If I'm a Bay County employer, how might you be able to help me?
First thing is get a hold of me. Let's talk. Let's sit down and have a conversation. I'm going to give my email and I'll have you put it in the blurb about the podcast.
Yeah,
but
Sara at baycityarea.com, right?
Yep, okay. Yep. So email me. Let's sit down and have a conversation. First things first, I want to know what barriers you're seeing in employment. I want to know what I can do to help overcome those barriers. And maybe it's something that we work together on. Maybe it's something where we have to get into the schools and start training on a different set of skills for that industry. Mm-hmm. So the first step is reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. I'm a huge person on education. I want to learn your industry and learn where I can meet you and where I can help with those pain points. So first things first, let's set up a meeting. Let's sit down and have a conversation and figure out what are your barriers? What are your pain points? And also, what's working for your company or industry that we might be able to transition across the board so that we're all seeing success. First things first, let's set up a meeting. Email me, call the chamber office. I don't know the number off the top of my head, which is probably not the best. I think it's like 893-4567, honestly. Super easy to remember. But get a hold of me. Let's sit down, have a conversation. Let's have a cup of coffee and get to know each other. I think that's where these relationships are going to be where we're going to be able to start. Let's have a very candid, tough conversation and see what we can do to improve the quality of life and then improve the people that we're seeing entering the workforce.
I want to point out that individual attention is something that not many efforts like this do. Mm-hmm. They're kind of operating out on their own thing. They're doing their own work. They have their kind of annual event, but there isn't this open invite to employers to say, hey, let's sit down and meet. Let's talk about what you need and how we might be able to help. There's never really that invite. And so I want to encourage our employers here in Bay County to really take advantage of that. It might be directly fruitful. Mm-hmm. You might be connected with somebody who's really, really qualified, either now or eventually. It also might be indirectly beneficial because something that you said was repeated by 5 or 10 other people. And it's like, oh, we have to get our schools and our employers in a room together to talk about this issue, and that's the BEP.
The BEP, yep.
And so even if you just make your thoughts known, that's so important because then you can go to other employers or say, hey, I keep hearing this.
Yep.
Maybe it's a grant from the state that nobody knows about that can help facilitate creating an apprenticeship program.
Yeah.
You can bring them that information because maybe the hurdle was, well, we simply don't have money or resources or knowledge to create a apprenticeship program, even though we need one. And you can come in and say, well, good news. Here's a program from the state and there's funding and X, Y, Z. This is how we can take advantage of it. So
yeah, and we have a really good network at the chamber and through Hey Bay City with Bay Future and Michigan Works. There are a lot of programs and a lot of grants out there that people don't know about. And I can't get you that information unless I know you need it. Yep. So I just met with a tattoo shop yesterday.
Awesome.
I love tattoos, but I don't know how the business actually runs or how it works.
Yep.
I met with that business so I could learn, because I have a couple that are asking me to help find employees. I can't find employees unless I know how the business operates. So being able to meet and get that education, I don't know what I don't know. So I need our employers to reach out to me and explain to me what you need and let me help you find it. I might not be able to be the one to help you, but I can definitely find someone, connect you with someone.
Awesome. A couple other ways Hey Bay City can either help employers or potential job seekers. If you head to heybaycity.com, up at the top, there's a jobs page. You click that jobs page and it'll take you to the Hey Bay City Jobs Board. And if you are a Bay County employer, you can list your jobs, your job or open job positions there for free.
Yep.
There's no charge for that. There's no approval. You simply create that job posting and it goes directly to the page. We've got more than 20,000 people viewing that page every single month. And so it's a really, really critical piece of this puzzle. Sometimes employers are like, well, I'm already posting to Indeed or I post to LinkedIn or wherever it is. Why should I post there? You're throwing another bobber in the water. And this bobber specifically goes to people who are interested in either staying or living in Bay County. Mm-hmm. And it can't hurt. You throw 3 bobbers in the water, it's going to pay off. And so that's my big encouragement to our employers. Use that job board.
And then the other part of that is job seekers. You can go on there and if you don't see something you're looking for right now, you can upload your resume and that comes directly to me. So a shout out also to the employers. I have a resume database. Mm-hmm. Contact me. If you're looking for a specific person, contact me. I can search by skill set. So contact me, get a hold of me. Let's do this together.
Yep. Also, just generally on the website, you've got the job board. You can upload resumes. You've got all the past stories that we've done, podcasts and things like that. And I just want to quickly highlight the why because of that. Because on the outside of it, it looks like, well, why that? Why are we doing stories and podcasts and photos and people and things like that? It's because the greatest asset Bay County has is our people.
Absolutely.
And this is a way to check a whole lot of boxes all at the same time. A strong community is a community with healthy relationships, and you can't have healthy relationships if you don't know each other.
Exactly.
And so here's a way that you can wake up every day and you're like, oh, Janae Lodwick, she's the new Miss Michigan. Amazing. We have Olympic hopefuls and the guy that you buy pizza from down the street, or things in your community that you never knew existed, events and all of these things. All of those things work together to communicate a community that cares about itself, that cares about other people, that does offer a high quality of life. And I think it does it in a way that people are receptive to. If the bulk of this work was simply creating little advertisements and graphics and little Bay County is a great place to live.
The place to be.
Yeah, the place to be. It's a great place to live, work, and play. I mean, what it ends up doing is, one, it teaches people to ignore us because we're not really doing anything of value to them. And two, it also it communicates in a way that people will actually listen to it. Mm-hmm. And there's so many residual benefits with the relationships and the small business support and all of those things. So I just want to say, if you are a lifelong resident of Bay County, hop onto that website, check out the stories, and I guarantee you, you will not know the stories of most of the people that are there.
Yeah.
And that's so important for us. And then it's also a way to signal to people not from this community that we are different. Mm-hmm. And so important in the realm of marketing, because if you have every city and across the country all saying, come here to blank, community because we're a great place to live, work, or play. What does that actually mean? It means nothing.
Right.
But if you stumble upon this website that says we are so in love with our people, we're going to take the time to tell you their stories over and over and over again, that hits different.
Yeah.
And that communicates with a certain kind of person that's looking for a community like ours. So check those stories out.
Yeah. And if you are coming from out of town, the chamber is a great place to start. We're a community collaboration, and we will show you and introduce you to the right people. That is one of my very favorite things to do, is see somebody that's walking in for the first time, approaching them, and then just making those connections. What do you do? What business are you in? I have 5 people that you can meet right now.
Yeah.
And then I know I can pass them off to my little team, and they'll be well taken care of.
Amazing. So if folks want to reach out to you, either they're a job seeker or they're an employer, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Shoot me an email. I'm not in my office very often. I'm bebopping around, meeting with employers, going to schools and whatnot. So shoot me an email, and then we'll set up either a phone conversation or an in-person meeting. And email is the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Sara Parker, thanks so much for the time today. Thanks so much for the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. I appreciate it.
Cut.